Delta jet crash. Delta Airlines plane crash.
Delta plane crash.
Delta passenger jet crash landing a short time ago in Toronto.
On February 17, 2025, Delta Airlines Flight 4819, operated by Endeavour Air, crashed while attempting to land at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The aircraft involved was a Bombardier CRJ-900, a regional jet commonly used for shorter flights, which was approximately 16 years old according to FAA records. The flight was en route from Minneapolis to Toronto, carrying 80 people, including 4 crew members and 76 passengers. The region had been grappling with drifting snow following 2 snowstorms in the preceding days, and the airport was experiencing challenging weather conditions at the time of the incident. Winds were reported at 32 miles per hour, with gusts reaching 40 miles per hour, though no significant crosswinds were noted. Despite the winter weather, the runway condition was rated a 5 on a scale from 1 to 6, just 1 level below dry, indicating good braking action. Air Traffic Control, ATC, cleared Flight 4819 to land on runway 23 with the following communication.
Toronto Tower, Endeavour 4819, I'm tagged. North 23.
Endeavour 4819, Toronto Tower, wind 270-23, gust 33, clear to line on rate 23. You might get a slight bump in the glide path. There'll be an aircraft in front of it.
Clear to land 23, Endeavour 4819.
Shortly after 2 p.m. local time, Flight 4819 began its final approach to Toronto Pearson. ATC had warned the pilots of a possible side bump on the glide path due to wind conditions coming from 270 degrees at 23 knots with gusts up to 33 knots. The approach appeared stable, and the pilots reported no issues during the descent. However, in the final moments, unexpected problems arose. The plane struck the runway much harder than anticipated, with the right main landing gear touching down first, followed by the right wing making contact with the runway. The impact caused the aircraft to veer off course, and unable to regain control, it flipped over. In seconds, what should have been a routine landing turned catastrophic. The aircraft came to rest upside down, sustaining significant damage, including the detachment of the tail and one of its wings. Inside the cabin, chaos erupted as passengers found themselves hanging upside down. Panic set in as they rushed to unbuckle their seatbelts and escape. First responders arrived swiftly at the scene, assisting passengers out of their seats and guiding them to safety. Remarkably, all 80 people on board survived the crash, with 18 sustaining injuries. Fortunately, none of the injuries were life-threatening, a testament to the quick response of the flight crew and emergency services, as well as the robust design of the CRJ-900. The cause of the crash is still under investigation, with weather conditions on the day of the incident being a potential factor. Investigators are also examining whether the aircraft had a history of technical issues. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is leading the investigation, with assistance from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. Less than 3 weeks earlier, on January 29, 2025, a mid-air collision occurred in Washington, D.C., between PSA Airlines Flight 5342 and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, call sign PAT-25, resulting in 67 fatalities. The flight, operated by a CRJ, had taken off from Wichita earlier that evening, carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. 2 experienced pilots were at the controls: the captain, with nearly 6 years at PSA Airlines, and the first officer, with almost 2 years at the airline. The flight had been routine, and weather conditions were favorable. Meanwhile, the Black Hawk, carrying 3 crew members, was conducting a night training mission as part of an annual evaluation exercise. The mission focused on low-altitude maneuvers over the Potomac River, requiring precision coordination and strict adherence to assigned altitudes. The pilots had been instructed to stay at or below 200 feet while following Route 1 before transitioning to Route 4, a well-known helicopter corridor near Reagan National Airport that intersects multiple approach and departure routes. The management of this complex airspace fell to the air traffic controllers at Reagan National Airport, who were tasked with coordinating both planes and helicopters. However, the airport had been dealing with a controller shortage for years. On this night, only one controller was responsible for managing both plane and helicopter traffic, a role typically handled separately during peak hours, but consolidated earlier than usual that evening. The controller cleared Flight 5342 to land on runway 1, but later reassigned it to runway 33, requiring the pilots to execute a sidestep maneuver to align with the shorter runway.
Tower 5342 on that learn visual runway 1.
UK 5342, Washington, 1 star 32017.25. Check runway 33.
Yeah, we can do 33 for boosting 342.
UK 5342, and what's the thanks for change turn runway 33, runway 33 for the line.
Hit runway 33, runway 33 for landing 340.
Meanwhile, the Black Hawk continued its training flight along the Potomac River. As it approached the airport, the controller asked the helicopter crew if they had the CRJ in sight. The crew confirmed visual contact and requested visual separation, meaning they would ensure safe spacing, which the controller approved. According to the NTSB's preliminary report, the helicopter's cockpit voice recorder suggests that the word circling may not have been received, potentially causing the crew to focus on a different aircraft or fail to anticipate the CRJ approaching from the side. The pilots of Flight 5342 had begun their landing sequence, making a slight right turn before a final left turn to align with runway 33. Several factors may have contributed to the confusion leading to the collision. The Black Hawk pilots were likely wearing night vision goggles, which enhance low-light visibility but restrict peripheral vision and complicate depth perception, making it harder to judge distances accurately. The city lights behind the approach path of runway 33 blended with the incoming aircraft, and the CRJ's forward-facing landing lights were less visible from the side where the Black Hawk was flying. As the plane and helicopter closed in on each other, a conflict alert warning was activated in the tower. The controller asked the Black Hawk crew to confirm whether they had a visual of the approaching CRJ, but the words "pass behind" may not have been heard, possibly due to the helicopter's microphone key being depressed. Flight 5342 continued its descent, executing the required steep left turn for landing, while the Black Hawk was flying at approximately 325 feet, exceeding its maximum assigned altitude for Route 4, possibly due to an inaccurate altimeter. The NTSB notes that a traffic advisory warning was triggered, with the cockpit crew receiving the alert, "Traffic, traffic." Typically, below 500 feet, many TCIS systems do not issue oral traffic warnings, but in this case, one was activated. Despite attempts to prevent a collision, it was too late. At 8:48 p.m., the CRJ and Black Hawk collided, shattering the helicopter mid-air and sending flaming debris into the Potomac River. The jet, suffering severe damage, lost control and plunged into the river just half a mile from the runway threshold. Emergency responders from Washington, D.C., Arlington County, Maryland State Police, and the U.S. Coast Guard arrived minutes after the incident was reported. But all 67 lives were lost, marking the deadliest U.S. aviation disaster in 16 years. In a separate incident, a man walking home after a long day hears the distant roar of an aircraft growing louder, sounding heavier and closer than usual. He slows down and looks up to see a Boeing 747 clearly in serious danger, with a mayday call from the cockpit. 1862. This suggests yet another potential aviation emergency unfolding.